Hello, and welcome to the Mid Am Podcast. We're your host. I'm Tyler Munns, and on the other side of the screen for me is my good friend Nathan Furumasu.
Cheers.
Uh, this episode 6, we
Our
decided
final.
we're just what the
Our
final
final episode.
yeah the series finale, limited series. HBO didn't pick
Yes.
it up. No, so this episode we decided to just do a little. We're going to borrow a term that I only have ever heard from the Trap Draw, which is a chop session. So we're just going to kind of we both threw down some topics we kind of wanted to just ruminate on, and we're going to do that here tonight. So I'll kick it over to you. What's the first topic you want to talk about, Nathan?
What do I want to start with? I want to start with
what?
your round at the reserve. I want to hear this story.
Okay. This was wild, dude. So yeah, I got an invite from a guy that I've interacted with online who is originally from Portland, but he lives in Chicago now. He reached out and was like, hey, do you want to play at the reserve on Saturday after Thanksgiving? I said, sure. So we get out there, first, second, third hole, no problem. Fourth hole, on the third hole, as we're walking over.
Pause.
Go ahead.
Is this on the north or the south course?
North course.
Okay, thank you.
So we're on well, actually, I think we probably started hearing it on the second hole, which is that long par 4 with the weird green. And we start hearing these loud explosions, like big booming popping sounds. And I figured that it was just the course using something to try to scare the geese away. And so I was like, yeah, I think it's just because one of the guys we were playing was like, is that a gunshot? And I was like, well, it might be, but I think it's just for the geese. So it's probably like a blank. And we keep walking, we get to the third hole, and we keep hearing it. It's very like intermittent, but the frequency is starting to increase. So we play the third hole. And then the fourth hole, the tee box is up against like a property fence of like this house that has like a barn and a bunch of brush and stuff. And we're hearing this popping noise. And all of a sudden we start hearing this like whistling noise, like over our heads. Oh. And they're like, and the dude's like, what I think that might be a gun. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That whistling sound is so weird. Like it might just be like a portion of the blank. I'm trying to be like optimistic. I don't know why, but I was like, yeah, I don't think it's a gun. And then we hear one more, and then it's like a very distinct, like whizzing noise above our head. And everyone just hits the deck. We're like, oh shit, that is a bullet. Like someone is target shooting, and every time they're missing or hitting the steel, it's ricocheting off and then just flying over the golf course.
Oh my god.
And we're hearing these bullets, no joke, fly over our head. And so we're like, thankfully the fourth tee box kind of it's a berm. So like we actually can take cover, which is like so weird to think about. Like, we had
what a weird thing to say on the call.
Yeah. we had like a military vantage point where we could like take cover behind the berm.
A foxhole.
Yeah. And so we're kind of laying there, and one of the guys calls the cops, and he's just like, yeah. Or first we scream. We're like, we hear one pop, and then we hear that whiz, and it sounded very close to our heads. And we scream at them like, yo, like you are firing over like a populated area. And then they must have, I'm assuming that ear protection on, which is kind of ironic because they're dumb enough to like fire within city limits and like potentially endanger the lives of like the public. But they're like, oh, we're going to, safety first.
Safety first.
So I'm assuming they didn't hear us because they just kept like rattling off shots. And so one of the guys we were playing with is like on the phone with the cops, and he said like one of the funniest things I've ever heard. He goes, he's on with dispatch, and he's like, well, I do have a gun in my truck. I can go grab that and return fire if you'd like me to.
Oh,
as like a as like a ploy to get them to come sooner. And you know what? Within 5 minutes, there's 6 cruisers rolling down the street, and he's on the phone with the officer with Google Maps out, like like quarterbacking
Triangulating a
them to being
position.
like, because it was like they lived, it was like, if you've ever been out in that area, it's
Hmm.
a lot of it's kind of like farm, not quite farmland, but it's definitely more rural. And so, not all the, it's not super Google Mapsable. And so he's like, he's got his GPS out, or he's got his, map out. And he's like, be like, okay, I see you guys on this road, take your next left. And it was just like the weirdest experience. And I
Wow.
like called the pro shop and I was like, hey guys, just so you know, I think there's live ammunition just being like popped off over the golf course, in case you're wondering.
Just so, do I get, is this like, like aerated greens? Do I get a discounted green
Dude,
fee or
yeah,
like?
I was kind of hoping, because I mean, I know I talked to the director of golf, because he was there when I worked there like 15 years ago,
Hmm.
16 years ago. So I know I was talking to him.
Hmm.
But no, he didn't offer, and I didn't really feel like asking. And I also like, stupidly, I got up on the fourth tee box and hit the tee shot. And yeah, I
I've lived
ended
a
up
good life.
I parred the hole, so that was pretty cool.
Good. That's good
Um,
pressure training that
I know.
we've got to
Well, and
build
it was
that
funny.
in.
The guy that we were playing with, he's started playing golf a couple years ago, so he's still getting there. He's like got a lot of potential. He's an athlete, but he like hit his best tee shot, and his like best tee shot of the day was on that hole. And I was like, dude, we just got to bring a gun every time you play. Just pop off a couple desk pops, and and like, we're gonna drop your handicap here quickly. So yeah, that was my story.
Hmm.
I've never been shot at while I was on a golf course, and I can check that box.
Wow, congrats. Side story, I used to work at a golf course and we had, a lot of geese as we do in the valley here this time of year, and we would drive around in a golf cart with a paintball gun and just pepper them. I mean,
Geese are assholes, dude. Geese are
you
assholes. So
rarely, yeah, and you,
I don't
yeah,
even feel bad.
you rarely actually even hit them. They're pretty, they're pretty quick, and it
Yeah.
was a cheapo paintball gun, but it was more the sound of it, and and something whizzing past them that they, oh, they get up and they just fly over to the next hole, and then you drive around. It was actually pretty fun because the course was really slow in the wintertime, so then you just
Yeah.
drive around with a paintball gun in a cart with the cart curtains and a heater, and you were all cozy and just dut, 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 dut. you know, it was
That's
great.
fun. Yeah.
So that's as close as I've come to live munitions on a golf
Yeah, I would
course.
I would say the 0 out of 10 I would not recommend. It was a little stressful. Tough to really, because like that whole fourth hole is really, it's birdieable, especially because the pin was in the front.
Mm,
Um, so I was a little frustrated.
rightly so, I think. Well,
Mm,
that's a hot start, I would say.
that was a weird
Where do
one,
we
yeah.
go from here? Where do we go from here?
Well,
How about this?
I've been,
Oh, you.
I'll, because I think I know where you're like, if we're gonna go into your list,
Oh,
I've
I don't know.
been,
I was just.
yeah, well, I've been thinking a lot about practice and what I'm gonna do in this off season. So a few of the questions that you posited, um, got my wheels turning earlier this week, and I was texting you about it. But yeah,
Mhm.
let's jump into the question: should I even hit balls this winter? What
Yeah.
prompted that question?
Yeah. Okay, so that's like 40% a joke and sort of just like a facetious
Yeah,
or sarcastic comment. Um, but so it's born out of the things that I'm working on with my swing and the things that I want to focus on improving at over the wintertime, which is mostly sequencing and tempo, um, and speed. And for those things, most of the training that I've been doing for that are things like rope swings or like a Dr. Kwan, just a swinging a rope and trying to keep it flowing and not using your arms to manipulate the rope in any way. Also similar to like a Dan Martin's The Pro. These aren't
yeah,
ads at all. I haven't paid those people for
not
their
yet.
products and they haven't paid me. Um, but where you're the impetus is to try and swing it so that the energy gets out to the end of
Mm,
the implement, whether that's a rope or the training aid. Um, it's very centrifugal force.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. You don't hit golf balls while doing that. Same thing with most speed training.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, whether it's stack or ripstick or any of those types of things, or even like the Mach 3 stuff that I've been
Yeah.
very interested in. You don't hit golf balls. You're just making swings. So I've been pretty diligent, just about every day, if not a couple times a day, spending 15, 20 minutes, or multiple shorter sessions, just getting out there, doing some swinging with the tour tempo tones, and swinging with doing my practice, talking about
Mm-hmm.
practice. Um, and I realized this week earlier when I was thinking about discussion points, it's like I haven't hit a ball in like 3 weeks, something like that. Like I took down my net in my backyard because it was raining, and
Yeah.
I don't like leaving it up in the rain. Um, but I still have like my mat out there that I stand and swing on, and a little practice station. But I haven't been hitting any balls, and I kind of thought, well, I've come this far. Now I'm kind of curious. Like, could I get better without ever hitting a full on golf shot this winter?
Yeah.
And I suspect, um, because of the things I'm working on, yeah, I could. I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
will, but it was kind of a provocative little idea. I have been I have been hitting something. I think I texted you
Yeah.
that video of that drill. I got an impact bag and kind of have been working with placing it in some different areas, um, because I think that your body has to relate motion to some force that is impact, um, especially with golf or any other type of hitting sport. Your body needs to have an awareness of where that takes place in space, to learn to move through that space
Yeah.
in the ways that we want. I think that's important. So I have been hitting something for some of my training, but not a golf ball. And I don't know that I care at this point. It kind of like my practice has felt good. The swings I'm making feel fast. They feel really efficient. They feel like I'm not working as hard, which is the
Yeah.
whole goal. Tones are getting easier to follow, and so I'm kind of thinking not I might make it intentional now, not hitting a ball for maybe the next month or so, through a better portion of the winter, and then kind of build it back in as we get closer to more playing weather.
Yeah. It's the Yeah, I mean, it's an intriguing concept. I know anecdotally, like for me, I last off season, I focused really hard on like hitting a lot of balls and focusing on positions and stuff, and it was really like I felt like I was just up against a wall. And then when I broke down my net in like June, more as like just an experiment to be like, dude, I'm so in my head about swing stuff, like, and I'm in my backyard hitting foam balls into this net like 2 hours a day, probably, broken up over like 15-minute increments. But like I'm out there a ton, just like whacking balls and, you know, filling up the storage on my phone. And so when I took it down, my, my, my scores dropped pretty considerably because I just stopped thinking about golf swing and started playing a little bit more golf. And I don't know, there's a lot of variables. It's tough to say whether or not it was that or if it was just like I was playing more golf or timing was fine or whatever. But this idea of like um, the word I was thinking of when you were talking was intent. So this like idea of, so when you sent me that video of you hitting or swinging towards that impact bag hanging out in front of you, and going back to the Mach 3 speed stuff where he preaches, like, speed out front. It's all about intent. I watched this thing with Be Better Golf and Marcus from GRF.
Marcus Bell,
Yeah, and
that's
he's
some good
talking
stuff.
about intent. It's like so much of it is just like intent and being an athlete and golf being an athletic movement, and like all of those things, it's like, or then the third part of that is Elite Golf School is another one of my favorite accounts to
Spirals.
follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're one of their like the pillars of their teaching philosophy is impact is just a phase. Everyone, and myself included, gets so like infatuated and so like fixated on impact position and just impact in general. But it's like impact is a millisecond of the golf swing. If you in like proportionally to like the entirety of the golf swing, impact is like probably one of the least significant from a time standpoint, right? And so this idea of like not sacrificing the flow of the golf swing or the intent of the golf swing for the sake of impact, which is just granted, it is the most important part from like a mechanical, like makes the ball go forward, which is what we're trying to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But like if you kind of start thinking about it more holistically, like a little more like zen granola crunchy whatever, like yeah, I mean if you really just if you get super bogged down by impact position and getting we rip on Genghis a ton, but like getting
Did you see?
Scooby,
Yeah, but did you see the video he just put about
yeah, I did.
the pinky and
Yeah,
the? Yeah, that's
yeah.
great.
So it's like this idea of yeah of like focusing on things like intent and just and kind of removing the ball from it and de-emphasizing impact. It's an interesting question, and I know that like for years I focused so much on impact, and then like the second I was like I'm just gonna kind of not think about, I kind of swore away mechanics entirely,
Mm,
which I don't think is the right. Yeah, I think that's another extreme, but like when I did that, all of a sudden, like my natural athleticism kind of took over, and it's like, okay, cool. Now I know where my ceiling is.
sure.
Think, with the game that I have, which is pretty decent. You know, how can I improve? Well, I personally went back to my whole plan was like, all right, cool. I'm going to shut it down for the winter. I'm going to work on these swing changes, try to do what I did last year, but do it better. And then like the third range session in, I was like, this is miserable, dude. I'm having no fun. This sucks so hard. I hate this. I feel awful afterwards. I was like, no joke. I was frustrated. Like pit of like this feeling in the pit of my stomach frustration like 3 hours after my range session the other day, and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't do this. Like this can't
Yeah.
be the way that I get better. And so and it was like serendipitous that you had that just so happened to be the same day that I had put up the Google doc for us to kind of put some ideas up, and
Hmm.
you put this concept of like should I even hit balls in the off season. I was like, holy shit, like
Mm,
dude, I think that like that's the universe being like, there are other things that you can do. Focusing on sequence, like you're like kinematic chain. Is that the right word? I don't know,
yeah.
whatever. But
Yeah.
like this whole like working on the movements um, without focusing on positions or thinking about like club face
Yeah.
to like train your body to move the right way, because the one thing that I've learned is that like the brain will square up the club face. And so if your body's moving the right way, your brain's going to square up the club face, but it's going to do it in the wrong way. So
Mm,
like for me, my body stalls out. And so the way that my brain squares the club face is it flips my
flip.
hands.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I figure out how to get my body moving the right way, which does not necessarily require me to hit any golf balls, it just like could be med ball throws, it could be, very slow, exaggerated rehearsals. Like there's 100 different things that I can do. But if I
Right.
get my body moving the right way,
Yeah.
then once my body's moving the right way, like my brain's going to eventually figure out how to get that club face square. I think.
Yeah. Well, and or like going back to Marcus Bell. I mean, I've watched his stuff for years now, and I'm a big fan of his way he approaches the game, and he would say, I would say he'd probably agree with you, but in the complete opposite direction, in the sense
Oh,
that he would say, give your body and your brain another mechanism of squaring the club face, as in, and teach your hands to, instead of flip, teach them to more roll and like
Yeah.
rotate the club face about the shaft versus squaring by um, flexion extension of the wrists. And in doing so, as you do that early on in the downswing, your body intuitively knows, hey, if I stall and I throw my arms at this, that club face is going to be dead, dead shut.
Yeah.
So, in order to subconsciously orient the club face to target, your body turns out of the way to uh,
Yeah.
create impacts in a certain direction. He just did a video on that, but with Brennan from Be Better Golf.
Yeah.
But he's done that. I've seen him do that for years. It's not anything new. It's also something similar to a lesson I've taken from um, uh, Monty Scheinblum, who's a old long drive guy, and he's out there on the internets. And his whole
Hmm.
like no turn cast thing that he kind of got famous for is, from the top, you're releasing all the angles and putting your wrists into these conditions where you're shutting down the face. But what that does is it forces your not forces, but it makes your body want to turn
To square.
to square, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to move your body to square the club. It's move the club and it squares your body. So
Yeah.
I would say same
Yeah.
thing. I maybe didn't give myself enough credit. I kind of painted a picture like I stumbled into this, but I have given, this is sort of the area of golf that has really captivated me for the better part of a year or two, where it's this intersection between skill acquisition and technique.
Mm.
Because I feel like the game has been taught in the slow motion video era, the game went heavy into technique, and we've got the P's,
The P
the
system, man,
P's
that
and the
kills
and
me.
positions, and we
Yeah.
can microscopically you know dissect angles and lines and things like that, and it's all technique driven, but it eliminates the idea of a lot of approaching the game with by skill acquisition, like how we learn any other sport, pretty
Right.
much. So a lot of the instructors and the theories about swinging and golf that I've really become fascinated with um, are surrounding more skill acquisition. How can we set up parameters so that my body experiences one extreme and another extreme, and then now that I know those, I immediately know the space in between just by knowing left and right. So, like, one of the things I was doing for the most part of this year, whenever I'd get to a range, is I'd stick an alignment rod out in the ground, or I actually had two, but for
Hmm.
ease of explanation, I stick one out in the ground, 8 yards in front of me, dead on my
Hmm.
line, and I would set up and swing, try and get my swing direction on square on to my target, and then use the face to go right of it or left of it. So just
Oh,
swing through
interesting.
open, swing through closed, swing through open, swing through closed. Try and hit it as far right as I could, try and hit as far left as I could, but all the time, all the while setting up, aiming at the same place, and swinging toward the stick. And once you develop this skill, because it is at that point just skill
Yeah.
development. I'm learning what my face open feels like and face
Yeah.
closed feels like.
Yeah.
Then you can start to refine the skill and get narrower and narrower and narrow until where it's like I'm just missing the stick on the right, or I'm just missing the stick on the left.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with vertical impact, right? You're trying to swing and just nip the top of a golf ball,
Yeah.
right? Or swing and hit it right in the nose, right on the equator, and thin one. Then try and hit one solid. Then try and hit one a little heavy, and play around with these ranges. And as you develop these parameters, which is all, again, none of it has to do with what P you're in or where you're
Right.
at in the P's. You're just trying to accomplish a task that orients itself towards solid impact. The more you familiarize yourself with these ranges and the more you become a master of what is at this point just a skill, then it's, you become a really good ball striker, or you can become a really good ball striker. And then it's just about doing it faster.
Well, it makes a lot of sense too because if you think about it, like the practice tee is just not indicative at all of like the field of play. And
Hmm.
so like doing things like trying to play around with your, like creating different impact positions, um, like when you have the shanks, like one of the primary schools of thought is like, okay, cool, like try to hit it on the toe and then try to shank it and then try to hit it
Hmm.
on the toe and then try to shank it. Like
Yeah.
feel around that like move that lateral movement so so your body has an understanding of like where the club head is. You'll see Ricky Fowler. I mean, one of the things that he does on purpose is try to top three woods while he's on the range, or actually Bryson is another one, and that guy's like so fake smart, like
Hmm.
that, like
Fake.
blow your mind. But he's another one where he'll try to like top three woods on the range, um, with the intent of just like, hey, I want my body to understand like where the club head is, where the center of the face is. And like if I needed to thin one, I could. If I needed to toe one, I could. If I needed to heel one, I could. Because when you get out on the course, that ball is no longer perfectly level with your feet. Now it's 3 inches below your feet or 4 inches above your feet, or it's, like you're on a side hill lie or downhill lie.
Hmm.
And being able to like adapt to those situations requires probably a pretty decent understanding, like spatial awareness from a
Yeah.
spatial awareness standpoint of like where the club is in relation to the ball. So
Right.
yeah, I mean that it's
But
super. Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, but someone doesn't need to know the swing technique um, to be given the task and try to sort it out for themselves. They don't need to know anything about the terms for how the wrists move, or shoulder, or like, tilt or rotation, or any of that. They don't need to know any of that stuff. All you have to say is hit it to the right of the stick. Now hit
Right.
it to, and so anyway, that's that's where my mind's been at for, probably a couple of years now. And the way I'm blending that into my winter practice, the should I even hit balls, is I'm doing my rope swings, and I'm trying to swing, you know way outside to in, and then swing way inside to out, and then find the middle, because I'm just striving for neutral, really. So I'm using the same idea of giving myself bumpers, on either end of a spectrum. I'm creating a spectrum for myself in my practice so that my
Right.
body learns where the middle is. Same thing with like tempo, trying to go faster than the tones, or trying to go slower than the tones, and then trying to find the sweet spot in the tones. Or I sent you that video, and maybe we should, I don't know, maybe figure out a
All
way
over.
to
Yeah, I'll overlay
overlay
it for
it in
sure.
there.
Yep.
But I would play around with, I would have the bag, kind of on my feet line. So I was kind of more exiting left and trying to make contact with it there. And then I'd orient myself more so that the bag would be more kind of on my shoulder line, or
Hmm.
target line. So I was exiting more, you know, down the line, or moving it way out to the extreme, like way out in front. So I'd be having to like come super into out
Right.
just to hit the bag, and just moving that around to create these this these bumpers, these parameters for myself, so that my body can learn the skill of where somewhere in the middle is.
Yeah, and This is a great opportunity for me to remind our listeners that we also post these on YouTube, so you'll be able to see our beautiful faces, and see some of the visual cues that we're talking about here. But yeah, one last thing on what you're talking about, or
Hmm.
more to like kind of sum it up or bring it
Yeah.
to a close. I know for me personally, like over the last couple of days, I've like kind of made the decision to be like, hey, I'm really not going to focus a ton of time on like trying to dissect every, single frame of my golf swing. I have these drills that I'm going to do that involve like med ball throws, exaggerated kind of feels. And then, when I do go to the range, I'm going to spend like 15% of my time, you know. So if I have 100 balls, I'm going to spend 15 balls doing like technique driven, exaggerated swing, drill swing type stuff. And then the rest of the time, it's going to be skill building, you know, pick a
Mm-hmm.
shot, hit a shot. Did I do it? Did I not? Great. And move
Mm-hmm.
on, because like that's golf. Like golf is not being able to stripe a 7-iron with a perfect, you know, club path and face to target numbers. Like that doesn't matter, because if you do that and you do it, you know, you pick the wrong club or you have the wrong start line, like it doesn't matter. Like what I need to be able to do is pick a target, hit it to the target, and score. And so for me, like this question, I'd already been thinking about it a little bit, but like this question prompted me to be like, um, a, what's going to make me happy or what's going to make me enjoy golf. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, like grinding on this range stuff and like getting super frustrated with myself is just, I'm not going to enjoy it. And and there are a lot of very well respected minds out there that say that's also not going to make me better. And so
Yeah.
I'm fully in on this kind of experiment of saying like, hey, what if we de-emphasize the range rat, you know, which is funny because Tiger, I think, came out this week and said he tries to strike the ball 1,000 times a day before a competitive
Before a
round. Just
tournament.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was
He's
like,
such a that's just he's such like a anytime anyone's ever asked him that though, he's like a, you know, Ben Hogan got to dig it out of the dirt kind of guy,
yeah,
just beat a million balls. But I mean, there's people. Tiger is obviously one of the greatest players
he's
to
a
have ever lived the game.
psycho too. You have to remember
But
that
but
he's a true
also,
sociopath.
yeah, but there are plenty of really 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 smart coaches of a bunch of other tour players that would say not to do that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I would. It would be really cool to get golf advice from Tiger Woods. I don't know that I would implement it, honestly.
I think like the advice like
Like a
Tiger's
playing
mental.
lesson from Tiger, I would record it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
or like the psychological like side of it from like a in pressure situation, like
for sure.
that's
Yeah,
like there's probably no one in the world that could give you better advice, but like from a preparation or yeah, like a preparation standpoint, there's probably like no one in the world that you shouldn't listen to more than Tiger Woods, because that dude has kind of done it wrong in terms of like longevity. He's not a like the poster boy of like, hey, here's
yeah,
how you maintain. It's like, hey, here's how you find your extreme bumper and then be like, you know what, I want to push that five yards farther.
yeah, yeah. Well, I could keep talking about this, but let's pivot. Let's pivot. I
Okay.
mean, that's kind of also one of the items that you had marked
Yeah.
on what we're currently working on in our games. I mean, that was kind of it. What is mental scorecard? I
Okay.
didn't understand that one, so let's move on.
Yeah. So mental scorecard. And it actually, I don't know, it kind of it's tangentially related to what we were talking about, but this idea of like moving away from the um you know, like the binary, like super technical, mechanical, um, thinking around golf, and like kind of pivoting that lens to score or like result based um, evaluation of how your round goes. And so this idea, and it actually, it the like rereading Be a Player kind of sparked my me to think about this a little bit more, was just this idea of like um like disassociating yourself from the result and the score, because like you can't always, like so many things happen within like the confines of a golf swing and a golf shot. Like you can't, there's so much that you can't control. And if you live and die by the result of a golf shot, you're going to be disappointed more often than not. And you're going to take yourself out, you know, if you're not superly mentally strong, which I'm personally not. I'm working on it, but I'm not. Like you're going to take yourself kind of out of the game more often than not. And so, like one of the things that I've been thinking about trying to figure out a system that makes sense for me intuitively is this idea of like a mental scorecard. And like the example I would say is on I was playing golf a couple weeks or like a week ago or whatever, and I had a decent round going. I was 2 over going into 18, and I hit a not a good tee shot, way too far left, which put me on this side hill. The ball was like 18 inches below my feet probably, and I was
Mm, I've been
165
there.
yards. Yeah, 165 yards forced carry over the ravine to get to the green.
Yeah,
Well,
I was there when we played together
that's right.
out
Yeah.
there, and
So
I hit it in the junk.
yeah, and so I've hit it. I've been in that spot many times, and I've hit it in the junk before. But I've also cleared that ravine and hit very good shots from that spot. And so I was like, in the moment, I took a 5 iron. It was like 165 yards. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna kind of like try to get real low and smooth a 5 iron, and get it over. If it goes long, great. If I chunk it, it should still get over. Um, and as I was setting up, I just like backed off and I was like, what the fuck am I doing, dude? Like this is such a bad idea. And so I like I grabbed a 7 iron and just kind of like bumped it down to the bottom of the hill, and I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
playing for bogey now,
Yeah, man.
because I made a bad tee shot, and so the consequence of that is I'm playing for bogey now, and
Yeah.
so I bumped down there, hit a wedge shot to like probably 15 feet. Actually, pretty decent wedge shot. Gave myself like a legitimate chance at par, and I almost made the par putt. But I took double bogey completely out of play. Like double bogey was not happening.
Yeah.
Um, and like I know I bogeyed that hole still, but like I felt so proud of myself for making the right decision and like thinking about, hey, what's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? Like, is it, like risk reward analysis? And so in that moment, I was like, I made a really good decision. And so like, I would like to give that, like for me, that was a birdie, like a mental birdie in my mind. Like,
Yeah. For
even though
sure.
the score was a bogey, I think like that was for me an above average decision making like scenario. And then the other aspect of that too is um, like more on a shot by shot basis is like if I hit a bad shot, it's like okay, well, did I go through my entire routine like start to finish, and was I committed to my shot and blah blah blah, and I just ended up with a bad result. It's like okay, well, I'd like to try to train myself away from being so tied in or so commit or so like impacted or affected by the result of the shot and be more tied in with like I controlled the controllables. So therefore, that's a par on my mental scorecard. So that was
Mm,
like that was the genesis of this idea of like I'd like to make that a point of emphasis as I go into next season with the goal of playing more competitive golf in mind. Like that's going to be even more important. Like being able to stay within like a good headspace, especially when things aren't going well, which with golf, that's going to be most of the time things aren't going to go well because golf is really
huh,
hard. Um, and so, yeah, that was kind of the thought.
cool. I like that. I brings to mind the do you know the game Go? The Chinese game?
Hmm.
It's like a with tiles and you
Hmm.
or little
Yeah.
not
My
marbles. What am I
dad.
trying to say? What are they? Little stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like
So
oval. Yeah. Oval
um
stones. Yep.
I once watched a movie about it was not a documentary, it was like some actual fictional movie or whatever. Um following this, virtuoso Go player. And one thing that I really latched onto with the movie and what they were talking about is how the game of Go has this almost transcendental, um, ethereal, not ethereal. What am I trying to say? It's almost like a artistic experience is how people think about the game. They don't really think about the game as in like winning or losing so much, or at least at some of the elite levels.
Hmm.
Or that's how it was sold in this movie anyway. Because the game is so immeasurably. diverse. It's so like the permutations of how the game could unfold are practically infinite. You know, it's something that people put supercomputers to trying to figure out, like, right, the how to play the best game of Go, or whatever. But in the movie, the goal wasn't necessarily like winning or losing. It was to play a beautiful game.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonated with me. And speaking then, like, to golf, something that also has a wild, immeasurable number of variables, and, seeming ups and downs, and good things and bad things. But ultimately, I it related in my mind to golf, because probably it would be better if we would divorce ourselves the idea of good and bad incidences within a round of golf.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, some shots are good, some shots are bad, or we did a good job at maintaining to our processes and things like that, or we didn't. But um, one shot, one outcome shouldn't we shouldn't let it affect us as much as we probably do. And in the grand scheme of your entire round, you don't have to necessarily view something as, like, good or bad. It's just this, a part of the whole. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as in the whole your round of golf. And so
Right.
maybe our goal should be, instead of like good and bad, it should be, I want to play a beautiful game of golf today. And so, like, I would say, what you did on 18 there was like, you made a choice that took away the possibility of a big blemish in the overall
Yeah.
work of art that your round of golf was, and instead turned it into like a beautiful picture of um diligence and maturity and things like that, to make this score. It was a
Yeah.
bogey, but it was better than another option. You created something more beautiful and better by this choice than what you could have done. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I just kind of that
No,
that made a connection
that's a
for
really
me.
good allegory. Like, I mean, just the idea of that, like an even par round, like a 72, like the steps to get to 72, there's almost an infinite. There isn't an infinite. There is a finite, but it's a big number of possibilities that get you to 72. On a par 72 course, right? Could be 18 pars. It could be a birdie bogey, birdie bogey, birdie bogey. Like it
Hmm.
could be. So like the idea of of uh, thinking of the round, or like thinking of one particular shot as being more significant or less significant than anything else is like it's flawed. It's a fallacy. Or what it really reminds me of is like roulette. Like, you
Mm.
get these guys that go to the roulette table and they're looking at the number and they'd be like, oh man, like six reds have hit in a row, like black's gotta hit now. It's like, no, no.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
That's not what that means. It's like this idea of like, oh man, I just hit two bad shots in a row, so I'm like, the wheels are falling off. It's like, no, dude, you just hit two. Like those events are just that. They're events. They're not
Hmm.
a pattern necessarily. Now they can become a pattern. And that's where practice comes into play. But like, from a mental standpoint, it's like, no, 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 like I know how good of a player I am,
Hmm.
and you know how good of a player you are. So I know what I'm capable of. And I know that if I blast two tee shots or whatever off the planet, like it's not indicative of me as a player. It's just like those were two events that happened, and I just have to, I have to craft the rest of my round, this beautiful game around what like that, and that's just part of it. And like
Yeah.
my abilities aren't in any way influenced by what I've already done. Just in the same way that like if I have a really good round going, the course does not get harder. The course does not know what my score is relative to par. It's not like the course puts up more defenses if I'm, if I'm one under going into 18 and I've never shot under par. Like, same course, dude.
Sure.
It's all up here. And so this idea of sell or like yeah, celebrating like the um, cerebral approach to the game, and in the way that you said, like really trying to just craft a beautiful round, whatever that means to you, I
Yeah,
think is probably
that's one thing I like about this idea as well, is that it's applicable to any level that you are as a golfer.
yeah,
Because if you are someone who always shoots 95 and you shoot a 90, that could be, you know, a beautiful game because you did the things that day, right, that were the right
yeah,
things, and you crafted it together. And or, take your pick at any level, 85, 80. And also I think it's possible to play a beautiful game and lose, which is another aspect to it. Like,
yeah.
there's so much that's outside of our control, like we've spoken about many times on this, on our show. It's just like I could do everything right and it would be beautiful, and I might lose or I might not score well.
Like, I mean, prime example, the final round of the British Open, the Open Championship with Phil Mickelson and Henrik Stenson, like two of the
Yeah,
best rounds probably ever played in a major championship simultaneously against each other. Someone had to lose. Did
right.
that mean that either of them played poorly? God, no. They both played
No way.
lights out. It was phenomenal, classic. But someone
Hmm.
had to lose, like,
Yeah,
and so yeah, to like marry yourself to this idea of your like your enjoyment or your success or whatever, insert adjective, adverb. I don't know. I'm not good at grammar, but like to be so tied into like your success, on whether or not it was like successful on paper, you're
yeah,
just setting yourself up for failure with a game like golf. It's because like
yeah. I
you're
think,
just not gonna perform
yeah, and
at the highest level at all times.
I definitely think, the higher, excuse me, the an important aspect to good and better and elite levels of golf are learning to remove the value that we place on things, like, is to take away, the value type statements or evaluation
Yeah.
that we naturally tend to do. One thing, case in point, Brad Faxon talks about putting some,
Just a little
because
bit.
he does that.
He's pretty
One
good at
thing,
it.
I've heard him say that I really like is that he's like, I never think about, like, is this a hard putt or is this an easy putt? It's just a putt.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that on the golf course playing with people, like, oh, that's a tough one. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's speed and pay,
It's
or
just
it's line and speed.
in
That's
pit.
it.
Yeah.
It's every other putt. You know,
Math, dude.
um, Matt. Oh, this is a tough hole. Well, course design would dictate that there's probably an easy way to play it somewhere. You know,
Yeah.
oh, this is an easy hole. You're just setting yourself up for, you're creating these. We're assigning values to things, and which create expectations, which create an opportunity for those expectations to screw with your brain
Be
in the middle of a
unmet.
round.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I dig it. Mental scorecard. I'm gonna have to
Yeah. And
craft
I don't
something
know.
down for
Like
myself. Yeah.
yeah, it's more of like a general concept. I don't know if it's necessarily like a hard and fast like thing I'll try to implement, but just
Hmm.
being more aware of like yeah, like uh, or like determining success based on how I approached it from a spiritual, philosophical, mental approach, whatever you want to call it. Like,
Sure.
I think is going to be is
Sure.
just another way to like kind of uh, yeah, separate from the technical, mechanical, like the binary X's and O's of that golf, that like we're just like in this age of like high speed HD um, video and all that. Yeah, it's just it's a different way to looking at it, and it's a little hippy dippy.
Mm,
But I think like for me personally, it's like, dude, I got to do something different. So I think this might be the way that I go.
cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Oh,
Uh,
well, that was deep. Let's come up for
yeah.
air.
Love that.
Yeah. Biggest problem in the game. I just put this in here because I thought, it's
Yeah.
kind of easy fodder. I don't really have any opinions. I mean, the hot one, I feel like all the time is always distance. And it's like, oh, should we roll back the driver? Should we roll back the ball? Should we blah, 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 blah? I don't really know. I don't really think there's an answer. I don't really
Well,
know if it's a problem.
it's a problem for a very small subset of people who play golf, and
Yeah.
it's not a problem for everyone else. So,
Like, I don't
yeah,
see people making football fields 120 yards,
no, just because,
or,
yeah, because the
yeah,
new crop of quarterbacks can throw it 70 yards. No, it's
yeah,
just like, and you know what? I'm gonna say like there are courses that have figured out like, um, LA Country Club at the U.S. Open this year. Like, not the longest U.S. Open we've ever played, but damn,
yeah,
you know what? Winning score was 10 under par.
yeah,
I think that's about as good as you can get at this point because like
yeah.
you can't outpace like the athleticism and just like these athletes are just getting so much better. Like golf is cooler, so you're getting like some of the best athletes in the world being willing to play golf versus any other sport. And
Hmm.
so like you just these guys are really good. And so
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No worries.
Um so I just think that like uh yeah, to like try to change the entire um game of golf around like 500 people who play,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, and
is
also
silly.
like, yeah, and also like looking at, proximity to the whole statistics, even on tour from 120 yards or in, and then also like putting statistics, like people people there we're not like I don't think we're ever going to have a tournament where like multiple people go out there and shoot like 59, 59, 50. It's just not going to happen.
No.
So even on a short course, 10 under is not that deep for in relation to some of the other scores that occur on tour,
10
like,
owner is not, yeah, it's not deep at all. And I would say the other aspect of this that like people don't talk about enough is agronomy. So like, yeah, the driver heads are bigger. There's less of a consequence of wailing on it because like it's so much more forgiving. It's tougher to hit really bad shots. And the ball obviously has its part in that. But like, when you have fairways that are running like greens used to run 40, 50 years ago, like
yeah,
that's the other part of it too. Like this firm and fast, and greens are so pure, like a three, like, I don't know. I'd have to look this up, but like, I would imagine that like 4 foot putting statistics 50 years ago were very different than 4 foot putting
oh, i
statistics today.
i definitely definitely think so. Like, and yeah, it's like, okay, so the tour is just shooting itself in the foot and creating a problem and then blaming everybody else for it because, like, they could just let the rough grow up. Like, I don't care who you are, if you got to hit out of 4 inches of rough, you don't have much
You're
control.
chipping out. I mean, we saw it at.
Yeah,
I mean, they toned it down a little bit at Marco Simone at the
yeah,
Ryder Cup, but like even there, like yeah, like if you missed the fairway, you were punching out. And I guarantee you, if they were playing a stroke play event there on those in those conditions, like winning score is probably going to be somewhere around 13 under ish,
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you're just gonna punch out. And it's like, is that great made for TV golf? Nah, probably not.
Mm,
But I don't know. I just think like this idea of yeah, trying to like for the USGA to be spending and the RNA to be spending as much time as they did on like coming up with a local model rule and all that stuff. It's just like, dude, like there's so many bigger fish to fry from a golf
yeah,
standpoint. Like, like if you think about it, golf was in a real bad spot in 2018, 2019. Like,
Yeah.
rough, dude. Like that, it was just, I mean, bottom was falling out. And then we got bailed out by the pandemic. But like, we're kind of getting right back to where we were in 2018, 2019 with golf. Like, a local course, Langdon Farms.
Mm,
Probably it's a public course, super nice course. Probably one of the few courses I would say in this area that actually makes good money. Um, they were sold. That course will be torn down and they're going to build business parks there. Like
mm,
that right there is golf. Like that's where golf. That's the things that USGA and the RNA and anyone in any type of governing golf body should be worried about. It's like, whoa,
yeah.
whoa, whoa. How do we
Course is
how
disappearing.
yeah, how do we
Yeah.
like take care of the 99.5% of golfers? Like let's not spend a bunch of money like litigating with Titleist about a new ball. Like let's I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just think it's silly to even like make it a
Yeah.
point of emphasis. And I get it. Like pro golf, there's
There's
apparently
lots
a
of
lot
money
of
in it.
money in. Apparently, I
Yeah.
don't really
Apparently.
understand how because I don't know anyone who
Apparently.
watches it. Apparently, there's a lot of money in golf.
I guess.
Um, I guess, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Well, you heard
it's
it here first. Grassroots initiative.
yeah,
Start petitioning the USGA to buy courses and maintain them.
yeah. Do some.
Yeah,
I don't know, dude. Do
there you go.
something. Figure
Yeah.
something out. Let's get our minds together and do that.
Yeah. Here,
Um,
here. We're
uh,
coming up on time. It looks like
yeah,
maybe.
I think
Yeah, we could save
these
them for
last two.
another.
I think these last two will go quick. I
Okay.
just wanted to point out the idea of traveling scratch that Kyle brought up last week
Hmm.
was really interesting. I'd know, like I've heard of it, but I never really thought about it. But I'm like, oh no, dude, that's the sign of a really good player. It's like a
Yeah.
dude that can go out and like go to a course that he doesn't really play and like kind of beat it up, relatively speaking. So that was like that's like a stretch goal of mine now to think about. Like, no, dude, I want
Yeah.
to be able to go somewhere and like impress people wherever I go.
Yeah. Yeah. And just pick it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's baller, dude.
I
I
love it.
mean,
What
and
are.
that's like
Yeah.
that's what makes pros really like that's one of the more impressive parts about professional golfers that like I don't think people give enough credit for. It's like going out and doing what they do, but doing it at different courses every week, different grass types, different climates.
Yeah. Or who
Wild.
was it Kisner that somebody was like, yo, you could win anywhere. And he's like, no.
Yeah. That's right. No,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Or
do you
was it?
think you can
Yeah.
win? And he's like, no, I don't. And they're like, well, why do you here? He's like, well, they give a lot of money to 20th place. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, case in point, like, not everybody's game sets up for, every kind of course. There are
No.
definitely courses where, I score better on always than others.
Yeah.
So
I just want like that number to be close. It's like if I go
yeah,
out
closer.
to, when I go out to Bandon, like I'd like to be able to be like, you know what, I'd like to shoot 76 while I'm here. And it's like, I don't think I'm there right now, but I'd like to get there at some point.
Mm,
My other
cool.
one was
Comment
my
coaches.
last one was comment coaches.
Are you
It's
talking
more
like
of like
Reddit?
yeah, or just social media or like the internet in
Yeah.
general. It's so I posted and I'll preface this by saying I recognize that I bring this upon myself. I have a fairly public persona. I put stuff out there. I really can't get mad about people commenting this, that, and the other. But I just want to like point out that it's weird some of the things that people do. Uh, and it's like I I imagine it's indicative of kind of a sad life because like I know a lot of happy people and happy people don't do the things that some of these people think that these people are doing. So like I posted a reel on Instagram of me playing 9 holes. And it was like super sloppy, soggy conditions. Like the course was borderline unplayable, but I just kind of wanted to put something out there because I've been like making it a point of emphasis to try to do some more long form stuff on YouTube. And so I cut it up to post on Instagram, just like 9 holes in 90 seconds. And I shot one over.
Mm-hmm.
with a three putt bogey on nine. Like I didn't, it's like not a bad score. It's pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
And all the comments are just like, dude, you suck at putting. Like everyone's just like, you got to learn how to putt, dude. You got to lag putt, dude. You got to learn how to freaking putt. That's what you need to convince your wife to like let you buy a new putter. And I was just like, okay, A, I know I'm not the best putter in the world, working on it, but B, like, what prompts you to go on and being like, oh, this guy, he sucks at putting, and I just need to make sure that he knows that, like,
It's the patriarchy.
yeah, whatever. I don't know. Maybe, well, and like on the coattails of that, there's
Yeah.
this guy that I follow on Instagram that his daughter just recently started playing golf, and he's like a golf photographer. He does a lot of like creative work in the golf space, and so he knows some folks at TaylorMade, and she caught the bug pretty good, and she's played on the high school golf team, and she's gotten really good pretty quickly, so these guys that work with TaylorMade or work for TaylorMade hooked her up and sent her some stuff, like sent her some balls and some clubs and stuff. And so as like a thank you to kind of be like, hey, thanks so much, she made like a little reel of her opening all the boxes. This is a child. This is like a 14-year-old child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opening up all the boxes, saying thank you. And like there are grown men in this 14-year-old child's comments being like, I just don't understand how you're sponsored by TaylorMade. You get all these nice clubs and then you're pitching wedge 100 yards. Like it's just bullshit that you're
Yeah, I
sponsored by
hit my pitching
TaylorMade.
wedge 190 yards. It's
And it's
ridiculous.
just like I'm just like I cannot believe that there are fully grown adult men in this child's comments being like flaming her, and she actually,
Mm.
she chirped back pretty good. She's just like, hey, I'm not sponsored by them. My dad just happens to work in golf. He knows some cool people at TaylorMade. They were nice enough to send me some stuff, but if you guys keep commenting, TaylorMade might actually sponsor me, which I thought was hilarious. But it's just like, dude, like, don't do that. Just
Yeah.
don't. No one, I can guarantee you, and pardon my French, explicit on the episode, no one fucking cares about your opinion. No one cares about
Right.
my opinion. No one cares about your mom's opinion. No one cares about your opinion. So if you want to put some positivity out in the world and say, hey, I think this is cool, good for you, way to go, rooting for you, awesome. That's great. That's never a bad thing. That enriches their life. It probably enriches your life. Great. But if you're like your first inclination on being like, oh man, this guy shot one over, he lag putted like a piece of shit, just fucking delete your account, dude. Like delete your
Mm.
account. Like it just like blows my mind that anyone would want to like put like that much negativity out there. And like for me, I get annoyed by it, but like I just delete the comment and I don't think about it 5 seconds later. But like for a 14-year-old child,
Yeah.
that's probably not the best thing to be doing. So like be a
Nah.
little bit more responsible and just don't like if you think you want to chirp or you want to make some snide comment or whatever and like bring someone down or make a joke at the expense of someone else that isn't like a very close personal friend, it would get it and it's fine. Just don't do
Yeah.
it, man. Just leave it be.
Yeah.
Also,
Preach. Yep.
I'll say this one more time and so decision tree. Should I give someone swing advice? Are you a certified swing coach that has coached people? The answer is yes. The next question is, did they ask for it? And if the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, maybe not. On the other side, are you a
Mhm.
certified swing instructor who's coached people and has been trained to coach people to be a better golfer? If the answer is no, then no. Don't ever give
Then
swing.
don't.
Just don't do it. Don't
Yeah.
give swing advice.
It's basically the golf equivalent to mansplaining.
Don't do it, man. I
Don't
don't
do it.
want to hear what you
Don't do
think
it.
about
Yeah.
like me getting shallower or more steep or skipping XYZ. Like, just don't do it, man. It's
Not
annoying.
helpful. Not
No.
helpful. Cool.
So
I
anyway,
think my last one
do
here
it.
is in the similar vein of my first one, but I had a question. Mostly just because I was shopping around a lot on Black Friday and trying to decide if I wanted to buy something. But my question was: are putting mats even really worth it? Is that a worthwhile thing to spend money on? Because they are ridiculously expensive nowadays to
Yeah.
get like quote unquote good ones.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've talked about this like when in the interview with Andrew Von Lossow,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, your brain just shuts off after a few.
Yep.
Or, we know if you're even just out on a putting green practicing on a real course, if you hit the same putt however many times, you've worn a groove in the turf. Like,
Yeah.
you're not getting true um, useful, worthwhile practice out of it. And then, secondly, back to a lot of my uh, ideas that are swirling in my head about developing skill in the swing. Is it worthwhile to try and do the exact same thing every single time? Or should we be trying to vary it up? Maybe I should try and hit a cut putt, or just hook the crap out of one. Or
Yeah.
maybe I should aim at this thing and try and putt 30 yards to the right, or 30 yards, geez, let's say 10 feet to the right,
Maybe.
10,
Maybe.
yeah, or 10 feet left. But like most of these putting greens that we can buy for at the house, like are couple feet, 4 feet at the most wide,
Oh, dude.
which is enough room to
One,
stand on and putt on. A lot of them are 2 feet wide or a foot
dude,
wide,
the one
and
I'm
you're just,
looking at is like 8 inches.
yeah. And so it's like, okay, is that worthwhile? I don't
You
know.
know, I
I don't
mean,
know.
just based on what we talked about, I think the easy answer, or the probably the correct answer, is no.
Yeah.
But
I think I saved myself a lot of money this week.
yeah, I do think though that, like, from a practice standpoint, there, like, anything can be useful if you're getting feedback in some way.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest thing. If you're just mindlessly like rolling putts on a putting mat, like, no, you're not
Yeah.
going to be better. Now, that's not to say that there isn't value in it. Like, I go into like when I'm in my office and I just kind of want to like disengage from whatever I'm working on. It's kind of fun to just kind of roll some putts. Like, so there's
Yeah.
value in that. Is that
Yeah.
making me a better player? Nope, it's not.
No.
But in that moment, it's giving me entertainment, and so that's fine.
Yeah. That was
Can
one
I
of the things.
you
Oh,
go
well,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was going
Oh,
to
I
say
was just
that
gonna
was one of the
say,
things there's a delay. Um, I was gonna say that is one of the my own arguments against myself is like, okay, I know there are ways that you could use it that can be valuable, could be beneficial. If you gave yourself a task of hitting 35-foot putts in a row and you get to 28, like you're sweating bullets,
yeah.
right? So like it can be valuable. I'm not trying to completely throw it out, but my brain goes to these like kind of provocative statements of like, is this really even worth it?
Well, I mean, then you can go a little deeper in the argument, being like, well, if you have a thin enough carpet, doesn't like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're not putting through like really, thick carpet, or if it's a thinnish carpet, like your office, or I have just like a rug. Like, I think the rug that sits right next to my putting mat, probably the same, like a very similar surface. Like, did I need a putting mat? No, probably not.
Yeah,
And can
yeah,
I recreate that 30th? Oh, I want to hit 30 putts to this cup. Do I need a putting mat? No, I don't. But like,
yeah,
I think no matter what, a putting mat or whatever, a piece of carpet can be beneficial if you are practicing the right way, which is with feedback, with with intent, with a goal in mind. You're not just mindlessly hitting putts, and practicing smart. Like, yeah, you can get better, but like, is a putting mat, a really nice putting mat, necessary? Nah, it's not. I mean, but it's
yeah,
nice to have,
yeah,
and there's nothing wrong. Like,
yeah.
do I need 4 sets of irons? No. But do I like to have 4 sets of irons?
Yes.
Yes. Did I get another set of irons over Black Friday? Yes.
Yes. Well, I just got a putter that I can't use indoors. So
What does it have? Like,
as I
is it
just
like,
got a putter
does
on
it
Black
catch on
Friday, and
fire?
no, I don't have a putting mat. I didn't buy a putting mat.
Oh,
I guess I have a carpet, so I could use it.
yeah.
Case in
Just put
point.
it on
So
carpet, dude.
yeah,
There you go.
it doesn't catch on fire. Fair point.
What'd you get?
I conducted a little experiment. Actually, you know what? You might be the inspiration for this. Uh,
What?
a while back, you posted a thing about like, should you get a really expensive, cool, trendy putter, or should you just piece one together off of GolfWorks and spend like $100 or whatever?
Maltby?
That's what I did. So I'm gonna build it up
Oh,
tonight,
cool.
actually, and I want to experiment with some counterweighting and
Yeah.
counterbalancing. So I got their really heavy shaft that they sell, that they make. I got one of the milled Maltby heads, a mallet style, not the blade style. And then I actually got one of the midlock even roll grips, not because I want to use it as an
Oh.
arm lock thing, but I have uh, an idea in my head that, gosh, so I one of my tendencies in putting that I struggle with is when I let the putter head get too far behind my hands and kind of like almost de-loft it too much, and then
Uh-huh.
I struggle to get it back to um, neutral by
Yeah.
impact because
Hmm.
I tend to lead, and I figured that the shape of that midlock grip, how it kind of gets closer to the wrist there. Well, if you
Yep.
don't actually set it up for like what I consider anchoring and like
Hmm.
using like an arm lock style, but if you just have it close, you can't actually hinge your wrist too much that
Because
direction, or
because it'll
the
bump.
grip will hit it'll hit your
Yeah.
wrist.
That
So
makes
I got it for
sense.
that, because I kind of want to play around with that idea too a little bit. But anyway, yeah, built myself up. I'm gonna build myself up a
I like
little
that,
flat
dude.
stick.
I'll be excited to I'll be excited to try that one out.
Yeah, yeah, looks good.
All right. Well, I think that was it for the list. We thought it was going to take 2 hours and only took like an hour 15. So good for
Oh, we
us.
rushed. We rushed. We could have talked more.
We could have, and
Yeah,
we'll do it again. I told Nathan this was like probably the most excited I've been about an episode, just because this is the real nerd shit that like we really wanted to
yeah,
talk about.
right.
So
Yeah.
I
If
have
you're
a
still
feeling,
here with us, then
yeah,
we're friends.
that's
You're our
right.
people.
You are our people, and you're invited to the next. You'll be the fourth if we need one.
Yes. Yeah. But since this
Cool.
is our
Well,
last episode ever,
that's right. Series finale. It's not the series
it's
finale.
not. We
We
lied.
just, this is the end of the bulk episodes before we start actually publishing. Bulk recording before we publish. So
Yeah.
we'll be getting one out here soon. I don't know when this one will come out. I know we talked about Black Friday, so it's probably not
Mhm.
going to be super topical because it'll probably be a couple months after the
Yeah.
fact. But anyway, that's how the linear time works.
Yeah.
Kind of boned us there.
How about this?
Um,
I have a teaser that directly relates to one of our stated goals for the upcoming
oh, there
season.
we go.
So
Love
you'll
that.
have to listen in next time to hear more about that.
Hell yeah. That's right, dude. Keep string them along. Love to hear that. All right, cool. Well, hey, thanks for tagging along with us on this sixth episode of the Mid Am Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Mid Am Podcast. As I mentioned, you can also watch us on YouTube if you'd prefer to watch our beautiful faces. You can find me personally on TikTok and Instagram at Fade and Fairway. And you can find Nathan on Instagram at Thistle Leather Goods, where he makes some pretty awesome leather head covers and other golf related goodies. Please subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you listen on. That would be greatly appreciated. We want to show the algorithm overlords that we're worth listening to. So if you like what we're doing, that would help us a lot. Until next week, we will chat soon.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.